Hello and welcome to Hidden Existence and Anything Goes. And I hope everyone's had a great Christmas, even though it's been a funny year and we've all had to do the best we can. But I hope everyone out there has been okay and enjoyed yourself at some point. I have a little bit. But with me, as always, well, tonight I've brought on both my wonderful co-hosts, Jason and Jay, because it's the last show of the year, and I wanted you guys on because you've made my experience time on the channel much more enjoyable, and I've got the best co-hosts, as far as I'm concerned, than any other channel. And I really appreciate you guys sticking with me and turning up on a Sunday and a Saturday to get me through these shows. So thank you to both of you.
No, I'm very humbled.
Yeah, I'm humbled. Thank you so much. If you knew how much you meant to me and what a difference you've made in my life in these last 6 months, I'm so grateful to you. And I'm glad we have this opportunity so that I can tell you that with everyone, that you have truly made a difference in my life. And I feel like I'm worth something. My experience with the Sasquatch has gotten out there enough to make a difference to some other people. And I'm grateful to you forever, Danielle. I love you like a sister, so I appreciate it.
And I love you like a sister, like a brother, I mean.
I'm kind of indifferent, I'll be honest. I mean,
yeah, whatever. You know, but you're not just eye candy. You're not just eye candy here. You know, you're more than that, and just you remember that, okay?
But not less than. But not
less. Absolutely not. I mean, that's just goes without saying. But you're much more than that. So.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And yeah, we're going to say thank you to a few people, aren't we? One in particular, Bigfoot Okanagan, Leon.
Yep.
Leon made a difference to our year, hasn't he? In the last couple of years for me. He's brought a lot of common sense, sanity, and all the other bits and pieces.
He brought a tear to my eye this weekend when I found out he included me with the important people in this business. And, I love you, Leon, and I appreciate everything you've done for me. And you have made a difference also in my life. You've really helped me more than you know. So thank you.
There you go. Well, we'll probably think of a few more people as we're going through the hour. But in terms of Jason, you've not been so well, have you?
Yeah, I was a little under the weather this morning and still under the weather, but I'll make it through.
It's a weird illness. I mean, I was checking in on you before on your Not Another Bible study this afternoon, and one of the symptoms apparently is weird beard. I've never heard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my beard's been weird today too. I don't know. Yeah. You know, it's 2020. At this point, I'm just glad I'm not growing extra horns or something.
Well, sure, there's some stuff out there that could make that happen, but nothing that I know of. So New Year is approaching. How are we going into the new year? Do you guys make resolutions? Do you intend to change bad habits or improve on existing habits, or want to reach a goal, or what? Or do you just get up and go, just another day?
Jay, I'll let you go.
It's just another day for me. I'm excited for 2021. I want to get out of this year. I know that it didn't go well. I was very sick this year, and I was sick for a long time. Mm-hmm. And so there's if it hadn't been for Daniela while I was down and sick, and a few other people, it made a big difference to me while I was sick, because I was really, really sick, and it wasn't COVID. It was something else that they still don't know. And I'm still recovering. But what I want to do is I want to get out more. I want to do some things with Brent Dillon. I want to do some things with Grant Still and some other local people. I'm hoping to do something with Shelley Covington. I want to do more this year to make up for last year. I guess it's not a resolution, but I want to be out there doing more Sasquatch stuff with my wife and these other people. That's my goal, is do a lot of filming. I want to get into places I'm not normally going to and things like that. I want to get some recordings out there, and I feel like since I've already seen them, I've got nothing to prove. And I've always thought that if I've seen them and I know what I know and I've seen what I've seen, then whoever's got the power or whatever, they know. I mean, I don't think there's a conspiracy or anything. I think that if I saw what I saw, they know, people know, or the powers that be. So my goal this year is to get out there and get as much information as I can for just me, for just my little circle of friends, that kind of thing.
Sounds good. Jason?
I'm kind of like Jay in that it's just another day for me, but that being said, I am always trying to find something I can do better, set goals that I think should be done. I will say that I'm wrapping up several projects I got hired to do. So once those are out of the way, I'd like to do more with my website, make it more of a museum to allow people access to things. Lose a little weight. I've got 2 more books I want to knock out. One's rather short. It's about reconciling the physical Bigfoot with the woo crowd, and also perhaps proposing other names than woo, because I think only Ric Flair can get away with that.
Yeah.
And the other one is sort of a re-tackle of one of my 2017 book, or books, really, just sort of reorganizing them. I think I've gotten better at writing and doing a few other things. So some fun stuff for this next year, but. Not like I didn't sit down and go, okay, my resolution is I just sort of keep setting goals and never really allow myself to stop and rest. So, whatever. I figure there's plenty of time to rest when we're dead. Definitely.
Yeah. I'm not really a goal maker. It's, forget by the next day life gets busy, doesn't it? But, I would like to do more with the channel and bits and pieces, my gardens need doing. That's really my main goal, is to get them looking.
I want to do something fun with Pat Turner too. I mean, there's just something, I like him. Well, I think there's something we could do, him and me, that would just be fun. And I keep pushing him to do this Bigfoot and bourbon thing. So I hope we could put something together, just have a fun night, a little show, whoever wants to join, whatever. Pat's a good guy, and I enjoy talking to him. And I also like to say the Gudros. How do you say Carl and Rachel?
Oh, the Gotros, yeah.
Yes, love them. Just love them to death. I have met some wonderful people this year, and I think that's a good part of. It's Pat. Cool. I just met some wonderful people since meeting you guys. Daniela, you've turned me on. You've turned me on to good people. You've introduced me to good people. So I appreciate that. And Jason too. I've enjoyed the few times that I've got to talk with you. In fact, you guys' show is my favorite after.
Oh, thank you.
After the Bigfoot Cafe.
Of course.
Well, of course. Right. I mean, obviously. I mean, but no, I appreciate that. I know Tex does as well, and I'll let him know. But we have a lot of fun on the show. I kind of like the freedom of just being able to explore the question, because I think that's the real problem that we have, whether it's this field or anything else, is when you get so hooked onto what you think that you can't explore something else. You can't say, well, let's ask some other questions. Let's see, how do these things tie together? It's not always clean. It ain't always pretty, and it doesn't make you popular, but I do think it's a lot more fun. I agree. By the way, Jamie Cottrell, I saw that comment earlier. God only made so many perfect heads.
Oh.
Secondly, 2021 is the day to clean out the junk drawer. Let's not get crazy. All right. The junk drawer exists for a reason. Let's not go crazy. Just saying.
You done? Yeah. I didn't say that, but I just maybe. Okay.
Maybe. I withhold the right to jump in and say crazy stuff whenever I feel like it.
Well, go for it. Who am I to stop you going crazy? So we've someone asked what's the topics tonight. Topics? topic tonight, and we haven't really got one. So who was it? If you've got a suggestion, Raptor Crazy, let us know, and if we think it's something we can talk about, we might talk about it. Asking the questions, and like you say, sometimes you're not become popular with it, but sometimes those are the common sense people, aren't they? And for some reason,
it seems like if you piss somebody off because you answered the question they asked, but you didn't answer it the way they wanted to hear it. This is real bad in the Bigfoot world. I just, the other day on this site, it's the only site I'm a member of, and I'm about to quit it because they just can't stand the truth. And that is, if you're going to send a picture and say, what's your opinion? And it looks like a stump in a forest, and I say it looks like a stump if it's anything in a forest, and then you want to berate me because it looks like a stump in the middle of the forest, then I can't talk with you, and that's the thing. Just because you found a loop like this in the forest, my wife braids loops, so I don't. Why do you think a Sasquatch did that? There's nothing wrong with thinking they did, but you've got to, don't get mad at me because I don't think a Sasquatch did it. That's the problem in the Bigfoot world, is people need to grow up. And it's time we pass this torch on to the younger people too. Our ideas, we've run out of ideas. We need to start talking to these younger guys and gals that are getting into this and start learning something from them. I'm not too old to learn, and I think it's going to come from the younger people in this.
Oh.
So let me echo that a little bit. I've actually said numerous times on the show, I'm sick and tired of people sending me pictures of blurry bushes and saying, like, would you like to see my Sasquatch? It's not a photo of a Sasquatch. It's a photo of a bush, and it's blurry at that. Like, a blurry Sasquatch photo is one thing, but you're not even giving me a blurry Sasquatch photo. It's a blurry bush.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really starting to wonder, though, maybe the real problem here is Bigfoot is inherently blurry.
Yeah, sure.
Possibility, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a possibility. I've said it before, but it's the same thing. If, there was a rare bird out there and you're into taking photos of rare birds, you are not going to present anybody a picture of that rare bird where it's blurry. You can see maybe a little bit of beak. It's just not going to cut it. And so,
you see how she says day every time? This is the smartest woman I know. I swear to God, that is the easiest answer. The easiest answer. Listen to Daniela. Oh my God, that is wonderful.
Right. All right. Okay.
But
It's the same thing. Why are we treating Bigfoot any different? We know it's out there. So it doesn't, I'd rather hear what you were doing out there and what was happening when you were trying to take that picture. I'd rather hear that much more than have a look at the photo, because it doesn't mean anything. Unless you've been back, you took a comparison shot and there was nothing there the second time. Okay, there was something there. But still, the pictures now, we need to move on maybe from them. It's, people take them, do whatever you want. Absolutely. It's nothing to do, anyone do whatever you want. But for me, those pictures just...
We need to raise the level of what is evidence and what isn't. Just ask yourself, if this was a court of law, would this serve as anything? Right? I mean, that's just it. I think the problem goes back to something I've said many times, and again, has pissed off many people, which is we have to sort of move beyond the religious aspect of Bigfoot, meaning this idea of, well, I have this photograph, let's look at it together and pretend that this has actually something of any value on it. No, this is not about making it either. We do need to come together and have an aspect where it's like, yes, you've seen something incredible. Your life has changed. We all know people who have PTSD from these things. Who, my life was not destroyed, but it was definitely shaken when I saw what I saw. So it's like there's an aspect of that is valuable, and we should care about it. But when it comes down to, okay, let's actually find this thing, we need to be better scientists, which is what does proof look like? How do we gather it? Let's actually start evaluating the phenomena. Again, I go back to what we've been talking about on the channel for a while now, which is there's clearly a paranormal Bigfoot and there's clearly a physical Bigfoot. Now, the question is, maybe the problem is that we're arguing over the word Bigfoot. Why don't we get rid of the word Bigfoot for 2 seconds to say, what does each phenomenon look like? And then actually we can start whittling it out. Because there's obviously evidence for a physical creature that walks around, it eats food, it kills pigs, it has family units, no problem. But then there's also this other stuff that we're calling Bigfoot that doesn't seem like that Bigfoot. It seems like stuff we've seen with the Leshy, with the Shayadim, with the Fae, elves, you name it. You know, it has more in line with that. But it does seem to pop up, and we're putting them together, and maybe that's the problem. You know, we need to be able to start saying, hey, what is the phenomena that we're seeing, and put them in their appropriate boxes so we can actually start pulling information that's valuable.
I agree. Yeah.
As Leon said, education 3 times up our game.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to, but you know, it's not easy. I physically can't do anything. This is the thing, isn't it? So having the ideas,
commute, right?
Finding someone to actually do it is another thing. But just trying to promote these ideas, and hopefully someone will pick up on it maybe and try something different, because you know, it's not working. So
well, I try to even tell some of the famous people. You know, I've been around a long time, but I just kept my name out of this stuff, and I do try to tell them that, look, you travel in the United States doing your conferences and stuff and spending 3 or 4 hours in whatever woods or close to the woods in whatever state you're in. You need to go to where you know that if you find tracks or what you think might be Bigfoot related things, you need to go there over and over and over and over and over again. That's what me and my wife have done, and it's paid off. So, you know, I mean, horrifying, but it paid off.
Strangeland, if you take possible photos or possible videos out of the Sasquatch search, just as well shut down the topic, because nothing left but stories. I don't agree with that, though. They're not confirming anything, are they? If it just say it is a tree trunk, it's not giving you any more a step up any more than not having that tree trunk image there. But what about prints? I mean, you know, there's lots of prints out there. There's
prints, there's audio, and here's the other thing: none of us are chastising. There are plenty of potential photos that are potentially of Bigfoot that are valuable, that are useful. We talked about one on the channel just a few weeks ago, where this kid had shot a buck, and he was posing with the photo, and in the distance, there's clearly a dark figure crouching down and has his hand on one side of the tree. Okay, could it be something other than Sasquatch? Yes. Is it likely to be something other than Sasquatch? Not really. That's a solid photograph. Like, we don't get details of the face or anything, but that's showing that there's a physical creature there that's using the tree for support. That makes the Sasquatch makes more sense than anything else. There are plenty of photos of potentially a Bigfoot that are valuable. What we're talking about is, here's a bush. Now, it's a blurry bush, but if you tilt your head to the side and say Bigfoot 3 times, and then turn around, get drunk, and then look at it again, you'll see Bigfoot. That's the problem that we have. Those are the photographs that are completely useless. The vast majority of Bigfoot photos are useless. But does a blurry or a photo of a Sasquatch, can they be useful? Yes. What we're saying is we need to be able to say, look, this is a useful photograph. This isn't a useful photograph. Not every useful photograph is clear, though. There's a photograph from a trail cam that at the Jefferson conference, Brockman helped break down. Is it blurry? Do we see? Yeah, but there are aspects that allow us to say, hold up, how tall? Can we figure out how tall this thing is? Yes, we can. It was over 7 foot. We can see that it's the edges because it's moving quickly. Like we could pull some stuff out. It's like, this was a Sasquatch. And so what we know is that area has Sasquatch in it. Like there are useful photographs that aren't clear. Our point, though, is, hey, she didn't say forget the photos together. She said what I said, which is, I'm tired of people sending me photographs of bushes.
For me personally, the photos don't mean anything to me when they're like at that stage, when it's a blob or whatever. More so when it's taken off a video that's been watched later. and then they spot something, and it's not caught at the time, because that's even more. You know, I can go back on a video that I've gone walking in the woods and start pointing out things. You know, especially, I mean, you've got much more foliage over there. Your woods are far more, your places are got far more stuff going on. So you probably see something in a wood where I live, but there just seems so much foliage and stuff. How can you really tell, especially when it's in a video? And that's why I say, with a comparison shot, is this a different thing then? You know, something was there, but the photos I wanted, you know, the ones where you were there, you saw it, you're trying to take a picture or something like that, that's got some context to it, not something that's just picked out a video still that you've watched much later on and you didn't know at the time, but when you're watching it back, you think that could be a Sasquatch. It's just complete speculation, and we've spent so much time looking at photos and speculating, and is it, isn't it? We've no idea. We would have no idea if it was a Sasquatch there.
Let me push back on that just a hair, because there is legitimate evidence that's found later, right? You don't see it at the time. Maybe it's at a distance. It's moving one direction, but you're looking over here, right? So
sometimes,
yeah. So there are, and again, I'm not saying all the time. I agree. Our point is, what we need is a higher class of evidence. What we need is to shoot for something better than just, like you said, speculation.
Parallax and pareidolia, the two together. Even if you're filming and you're going at a certain angle, something else will make something else look like it's moving, and that's another problem with looking back over videos. That there's a lot of things that can make you think you're seeing something, and it's not that.
Oh, absolutely, no, absolutely. But a great example of what I'm talking about is that New York State footage. It was you know, the family's out there doing everything, and in the background, this figure, clearly a very tall figure, you know, sort of, but still obscured from things, walks underneath a tree, and what looks like an ape jumps off of it and starts brachiating. Like that was entirely accidental. They didn't necessarily catch it at the time. Stuff like that does exist. Now, I agree with you. The problem is 9 times out of 10, even those photos tend to be, like you said, or videos tend to be, you know, like you said, you got parallax and I can never say it.
Pareidolia.
Thank you. And I completely agree with you. But there are videos like that. And I like that line that someone just posted, said if you have to explain it, don't share it.
That's Thomas Steenberg, yeah.
And that's a great point. If you have to explain it, then it's not valuable.
Yeah, Christopher Noel caught one. He didn't see it at the time, but I mean, it's clearly a Bigfoot behind a bush, and he's panning away, looking away. It's kind of standing up, I think, looks over this bush, and you can clearly see it. He didn't see it at the time, but going back, but that's clear. You can see.
I think a great example of wildlife photography is Brent Dill with the tall ones this summer. While he was out doing his expeditions, he filmed a black bear, and he filmed a black bear in the blueberries, and he filmed the black bear walking out of the blueberries. He filmed the black bear, like kind of challenging them a little bit, and he go back. So that's what I'm looking for is that kind of clarity. And well, he's got a bigger set than I do, because you know, seeing a Bigfoot, but I've never seen a bear in the wild, and I've never seen a cougar, but I've seen a damn Sasquatch. I want to see a bear, and I want to see a cougar, and I'm hoping maybe if I hook up with him, I'll be able to see a bear for the first time. I want to see a bear now. I want to see a cougar.
I'm kind of okay not seeing either of those, to be honest. Or let me rephrase this. I would like to make certain I see them from a very safe distance, heavily armed.
Yes.
Strangeland's asking me about Mark Zasky's photos. Okay, so if you watched that, then you would have seen that Kerry had to walk me through what was the lips, the eyes, and everything. Personally, those are exactly the sort of photos that I don't want to see, because I'm having to work out what it is. The only thing with those photos is I have to take, if Mark says he was there and he could see them at the time, That's the only thing I can go off to say. Then that was a Sasquatch. But there's just so many things to those photos, and
it's kind of not a fair question.
If you've seen one before, then you know what you're looking at.
Yeah,
I don't know. But
they know that you're associated with Carrie and that Carrie has a great relationship. I can tell you that I bought Zasky's documentary a couple of years ago. It was only like $3.99. I had it streamed in, but look, I have great respect for Mark. But if you're going to present that kind of evidence and you're going to demand that why aren't scientists listening to me? I want to tell you this. If this is my office and I'm a scientist, I'm sitting in my office and you walk in and you hand me that and I plug that in and I start watching, I'm going to go, this is it? I mean, you're going to have to sell me, and God bless, I'm not putting Mark Zasky now. I'm just saying that's not good enough and he should know that. And, you can send all your cards and letters and bad responses to Wes@SasquatchChronicles.com.
I wouldn't do that. It's just, people's opinions, isn't it? We can share that here, and it's not a big deal. We're not attacking anyone. But, those, just like I'm saying, if it was the rare bird, no newspaper, no magazine, no one's going to want a blobby picture of a rare bird. None of these bird magazines. It just wouldn't cut it. But why are we lowering our standards for this Bigfoot thing? Is because maybe people want it so much. But, either you're here because you believe it exists. So, let's stop fighting the way to prove it with photos. That's not how we're going to actually prove this thing exists. And even if we get a body, we still will never be able to really understand what this creature is and study its behavior.
I think people would still argue it's not real or whatever, even if you brought a body in, because everyone would have to see and touch it. That's how I am seeing this. I don't think one would be enough either, because the Japanese are still killing whales just to see what they're eating, and there's not enough whales to be killing them. So, they're killing, it doesn't matter what kind of whale, they're out there killing them for under the guise of we just want to see what they're eating. Why would you do that?
Yeah. Well, and a lot of this also goes back to, okay. Because again, I don't believe in most conspiracy theories. I think they require too much sophistication, too much coordination. I don't see humans having enough intelligence to pull most of these off, right? That having been said, I think if you had a body and you were able to basically get it out there as quickly as possible so that, and you saved enough samples that, you couldn't just disappear, because that does happen. It's one of those things where I think that would open up the floodgates. Here's the thing: we have to understand, a lot of these nature journalists and photographers who go out and get these really, really good pictures of animals, and they discover these rare things, they are heavily funded. That is their job. They're out there for weeks or months at a time. They have thousands of dollars worth of equipment. They're doing certain things we're just not doing as researchers, because we can't afford to. We can't afford to have some guy out there with $15,000 worth of equipment hiding in a hole in the ground for 2 months. Like, we can't afford that right now because there's no funding for that. But again, if there was a body, that would open it up and allow us to sort of figure some things out. I think I tend to, and again, someone mentioned that, and it's like we need someone with lots of equipment out there, and I think that's part of it. But I also think there's something bigger than that. And Tex and I we'll talk about this all day long. I think that the actual population for Bigfoot, and let me define Bigfoot as the Patterson Gimlin, 6 to 8 or 9 foot tall, hominid, physical hominid. I think they may be less, at least in the continental United States. Canada, there could be any number of things. Again, Canada is so sparsely populated, anything could be out there. But at least for the continental United States, I wouldn't be surprised if there's less than 10,000 in the entire nation. Very small, very mobile population. I don't think they're making nests of one place for more than a day. They're moving. They're following the creeks and rivers. We see them when we see them. I don't think they're necessarily forest ninjas. I think they're just a very small population, and they want to stay away from us. They're not necessarily going out of their way to, to come into contact with us. I think they do want to avoid us as much as possible. That having been said, I think what people see a lot are paranormal. They're being perceived as Bigfoot. And so the problem is we have a lot of researchers going to places, spending all this time and effort into locations where they aren't. And
Right.
Let me even say one more thing. I think if you're going to where you found the tracks, good, congratulations. You'll never see them there. Why? Because they're already gone. They're mobile. Look at the gorilla. The gorilla now there's a large landmass that they'll migrate around, but they're not creating some den or whatever and hanging out there for weeks at a time. They're always moving. We have to be ahead of them to catch them. The problem is we have evidence of one here. There's one here in an area. We all rush there. Well, they've already moved on. We need to start saying, okay, well, if they're seen here, what do we have any reason to think they're moving one direction or the other? And then be in front of them. We have to change our tactics, and we have to change. And again, this is why I want to separate the physical from the paranormal so much, because I think if we really were to remove that word, Bigfoot, and just say, well, what pattern does everything follow? I think our maps would change radically. I think they would have a bigger impact on where we're actually spending time trying to find a physical, Bigfoot that eats and craps and has kids, right? I think the map would change drastically in ways we can't even imagine.
I think we've said it before. There's people out for different agendas and reasons for doing their research or investigation, whatever you want to call it. People just want to focus on the structures, or just want to focus on the prints, or no one's really looking for Bigfoot. Not many people are really looking for Bigfoot. I think that's a lot of it as well. The end game isn't to find it. It's just to pick up bits of evidence. So I don't know.
It's like buy my brand of evidence. Buy what I found. It's what I see. And I want to make something very clear, very, very clear. I'm not talking shit about Mark Zaski. I admire the man. I just think that documentary he put out if it wasn't enough for me, I'm just saying it wouldn't be enough for scientists. Man, he lives out there. He does what you're supposed to do. And so I just want people not to misunderstand what I said. I just say that wasn't enough. And I think you need more. And that's all I'm saying about that. I didn't mean for anyone to think that I'm putting Mark Zaski down. He's got more evidence than I do. So, I just want to make that clear. People get the wrong idea when you say something. Everything goes south when you start talking in the Bigfoot world. People get butthurt, and I don't understand that at all. We're here. We got to help each other. That's why I'm looking forward to passing this on to people like Brent and people like him. The guys in Canada that are doing so well. These kids, Justin, I love that kid. I think we're just going to have to pass the torch, because we're just this 50 years of pure evil to one another over this subject is got to come to a screeching halt, or else it's never going to end.
Well, but doesn't that the conflict, right? I'm sorry. I'll go ahead. Yeah. I'll
just say Brent's in. Hey, Brent. Guys at Bigfoot Ops have been using audio recording to find out when and where they are. That's a good idea. It's Chuck and I forget his other name. They were nice guys, them actually. We should get them on, Jay, one night. I've been hearing some other people talking about using audio devices to pick up when they're moving, where they are at the time. What were you saying? Sorry, go on, Jason.
Oh no, I was just want to play off what Jay said. I think one of the real reasons there is this animosity and this extreme, it seems like it's become very polarized, right? Is due to the fact that, trying to say how to say this nicely, but we see this in other endeavors as well, when it stops being about the actual goal, right? the problem is I don't think everyone's saying they want to find Bigfoot, but what they really mean is they want to find a Bigfoot that matches their theories, their opinions, their beliefs, right? They're not looking to say, well, let's just find this creature and then learn from it. They're saying, this is what I think it is. This is how I think it behaves. This is what I think, how it should, this is what I believe it to be. And that's what they're trying to find. They're not saying, well, what's our observations? Can we find this creature? Let's find it. Let's learn from, and then figure the rest of it out. I think the real problem and the reason there's that much animosity is because a lot of people are trying to find their version of Sasquatch. And so they focus on the thing of it that makes them happy. For example, well, the tree structures show language, or this shows, a high level of intelligence. I'm just going back to, if we have professional researchers who can go out and not find a wolverine, and their job is to find wolverine, like they are wolverine researchers.
Right.
If they can go out for a season, knowing what they eat, when they eat, where they mate, where they live, if knowing all that, they can't find them, and what we have is a creature that we know practically nothing about, I mean, functionally, then yeah, we should expect not to be able to find it. Then it tells me that all of our beliefs and thoughts and theories on this creature are fundamentally wrong. We need to change target. But the problem is that's easy to see if your objective is to find Bigfoot. Allowing for Bigfoot to be whatever it is that it is, but it's not necessarily obvious if it's something that you believe it to be something that it isn't. If you want it to be this thing, then you're looking for this thing. You're not maybe necessarily looking for Bigfoot. And let me give an example. I have a friend, who will go unnamed. He has a problem with women. Always has. The good-looking guy. The man doesn't know a woman who's not super hot, like supermodel hot. It's insane. And like every woman I've ever seen him around is like, they're like, please let me be Mrs. You. But he screws up every relationship that he's in. Why? Because he falls in love with what he thinks these women are. And by the time they've broken up, he's like, I just don't get it. He's telling me, and I'm like, dude, you understand? You're not talking about her. You're talking about the version of her in your head. The reason they all broke your heart was because you weren't actually dating them. You were dating your imagination. You're never going to be able to have a relationship with somebody long term if you aren't actually in a relationship with the human being that's in front of you. It's the same thing.
Yeah. I feel a little bit like this about people focusing on the structures. Whether they build them or not, you can't possibly even begin to understand why. And I use beavers as an example. They use the wood, they make the dams, they've got the teeth to know the wood, blah, 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 all that. We know, we can study all that and see that, but we don't actually know if Bigfoot is building structures. Mm-hmm. Why would we spend so much time trying to work it out when we can't even work out the creature itself?
If the creature is actually the one building it.
Yes. As well. Yeah, mm-hmm. We don't even know. So.
No, that's a valid point. I mean, and I'm one who believes that they can and probably do make structures to a point. That's actually how I was introduced, was I was on an archaeological dig and I was asking, we were in the middle of nowhere. I'm like, why am I seeing these trees bent over? And like they were clearly manipulated. It wasn't a tree fall or anything. And the local said it's a stick Indian. And I'm like, okay, I just thought it was another name for the caddo in the area. I walked away from it not thinking anything strange until years later. I'm like, okay, so let's go back to maybe they are building them. Maybe they're not. But we certainly don't know what they're for. There doesn't seem to be a pattern to them. So like you said, we can't even prove these things were made by the Bigfoot. And here's where it gets weird. Again, I allow for the paranormal to exist. What if it's the paranormal stuff that's doing it and not the actual physical Bigfoot? What if there's something else going on and it's completely unrelated? That's the problem. We have, if you really stop to ask the questions like, what do you know? The answer is, you don't know jack diddly crap about any of it. That's the problem. We have theories that it's sort of like, again, my Bible study channel, one of the things I say all the time, we argue over what other people think about what other people thought about the Bible. We're not actually arguing over the scripture. We're living and dying over someone else's thoughts about someone else's thoughts about the Bible. Well, guess what? You're not actually getting anywhere with that. Same thing we're doing here. We're fighting over what somebody else thought about what somebody else thought about Bigfoot. We're not going to get anywhere with that. And the number one evidence of it, we don't got anything.
Got nothing.
And I just saw a comment on there that made a lot of sense to me. You have a lot of researchers saying, I got 40 years and I got 50 years and I got 60 years. But you don't have anything. A lot of these guys don't even have a footprint. Don't you think it's time to maybe stop, refocus? Because if you're going to tell me you've got those many years, and like Wes Germer says, give me 5 things I don't know about Sasquatch then. If you've got all these years, let me know. I can tell you I don't have a whole lot of years. I've been doing it a long time, but I never really spent more than weekends and not even full weekends a lot of times. So I'm no expert about it at all, but I'll go back to when I first met Daniela, the very first show I ever did with her. And I'll say, like you said, Jason, if you got something whispering in your ear and following you home in the middle of the city, maybe that's not Bigfoot. I mean, there's no reason to think it's Bigfoot. Why? I mean, but why are you so angry? Because I'm trying to tell you, maybe it's something else paranormal than Bigfoot, who leaves giant tracks in the forest and lives in the forest. And I've been asked so many times, have they followed you home? No, they haven't followed me home. They don't whisper in my ears either.
Well, let's throw another wrench in this. I won't name drop, but there are 2 very famous Bigfoot researchers that we'd all recognize. One's over here saying, after all this public time they spend together, and I think they're still doing stuff together publicly. One's like, I've never seen any evidence that would make me believe that Bigfoot is anything other than a giant ape. Then we got the other guy over here who's like, yeah, I think there is something paranormal to him. He's seen orbs. It's like it's clearly a spiritual creature. If we can have 2 researchers look at the same evidence and spend years and years and years together publicly,
and still not know,
they can book out this and have diametrically opposed opinions of this phenomena, something's wrong. That's just, it's one thing to sit here and say, well, okay, here's a structure. It's obviously a structure. Like a megalith, right? Here's a megalith. We've seen that's a megalith. I think it was used for this. I think it was used for that. But there's usually a reason for it. But we can see they're looking at the same thing. But they don't. One's like, yes, this is a megalith, and the other one's like, nope, it's a giant turkey. Like we look like what the heck is going on here? But that's where we're at. One guy's like, nope, it's an ape. Maybe Gigantopithecus. Maybe it's an Australopithecus that grew large, but it was crossing the Bering Land Bridge and got cold, so it became hyper cold adapted. Okay, one's like, well, maybe it's a interdimensional spiritual being, and I'm like, okay, those are not the same thing. But if you can approach this, look at the same evidence for years, and come up with those radically different opposing views, something's happening, something's wrong. We should be able to kind of start winnowing things down, not getting further apart.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I agree with that.
We're doing something wrong.
Yeah, I just want to catch this comment. I mean, has anyone ever thought of this? It's quite amusing, if anything. People know Bigfoot are about, and you leave
someone asked about poison.
Food.
Yeah, so someone asked about poison, right? Yeah. Poison will not ruin DNA. Just trust me on this. You can poison someone, or I'm sorry, something. Did I say someone? You can poison something. DNA will be fine. Look, if I thought I could get away with poisoning some people, there's far too many people walking around. But no, so that's a great point. Yeah, the problem is then you got to track them down. You got to track down the creature. So it's a problem, right? It's like, well, great, you killed it, but now you got to go find it. And how do you know its buddies aren't out there? You got to poison the whole. You got to poison the buddies now. So yeah, no. If you want to go poison one, like I'm not going to say to do it, but if you want to, then just understand you better make certain you get all of them so you can collect enough samples. Because if you get out there and they realize you did it, I imagine it's going to end up very poorly poorly on you.
Blondiana, there is a researcher studying a family pod. Shane Carpenter is doing that in the 400. I mean, these are exceptional people, researchers that are going all out to do something different and dedicate. I think Shane's been doing it for 5 years.
I think Randy's with him too, right?
Randy, yeah. Chris Reinhardt does something with them as well. And, it's not a weekend thing. You have to put, to study this. You have to put a lot of time into it if you're going to be out in the woods doing it. I mean, literally day and night.
Randy has a lot of solid evidence, a lot of sound evidence, especially even from our state here in Washington. I've talked to him privately a couple of times. I believe what they've got going is a good thing. I hope good things for Randy.
Yeah, I'll have to get him on, actually. I had him on... we interviewed him, didn't we, on the researcher's report, Jason?
I believe Randy so, yeah. I'm trying to remember. It's all blurring together. By the way, the cashew, I already have it.
There was 2 of them at the back of his truck, a really tall one and a smaller one next to him. Do you remember? He drew the image.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
anyway.
there are a few people out there doing what we're talking about. There are people out there doing it, and they're getting solid evidence. But it goes back to that point that we were talking about, right? If you want to catch 30 seconds or 3 minutes of a snow leopard, you got to have the funds and research to be able to go out there and spend 3 years in some blind on the Himalayas, right? And so it's like for the same thing, the people who can really do the hard work of getting out there and proving A, the Bigfoot exists, and B, what it is, are the people who are going to have the strictest procedures. They're going to be able to spend months at a time in the field. That's how it's going to be. Now, if we can actually find someone who's actually having legitimate activity at their property, who can set up some some long-term, very expensive traps, then maybe we can do something with that. But this is not we're gonna be able to stumble across it and be like, hey, look, it's Bigfoot. He's gonna be like, my name's Daryl, but like that's not how it's gonna work. It's gonna take somebody spending months on this.
Just so
Leon made me. If you saw me big crack up, it was Leon.
I was thinking of this, and thinking of helium, and then hearing the Sierra sounds on like helium. It'd be a totally different experience. Phil, definitely I know you don't think they're paranormal or interdimensional.
Well, it goes back to if they are, maybe you do have them in Portugal and you don't know.
Well, that's it. Is there no reports in Portugal? Have we heard of any? I mean, I don't know a lot about European. I've never
heard of anything coming out of Portugal. I don't study. I'm sorry, I haven't spent a lot of time reading about anything going on in Portugal. Although the Templars were actually active in Portugal for centuries after the Roman Catholic Church had them persecuted and destroyed. They just went under the name. They went under a different name. But they were very active there. I just learned that. That's about the only thing I know about Portugal outside of the Portuguese. Portuguese come from Portugal. So there you go. Yeah. Oh, and if we're going to talk about Portugal for 2 seconds, Columbus, I actually think was Portuguese and not Italian. I think he was a Portuguese spy, and that's and one of the reasons he knew America was there was because they had information. He had information because the Portuguese, when they were arguing with the Spanish over the New World, the Pope at the time, whose name escapes me, he drew a line, and the Portuguese were like, "Could you move it here?" And they were like, "Well, yeah, sure." Because in the Spanish, like, "Well, why do we care? No one's found anything there. All the stuff's over here," because they found Cuba and all that. The Portuguese asked them to move the line. By moving the line, they get all of Brazil. So it is entirely possible the Portuguese were well aware of South America, and that was part of what Columbus was doing. Basically, they were using Columbus and the Spanish through Columbus to allow the Spanish to finance the validation of this landmass. Anyway, that's it. That's all I know about Portugal.
Yeah. Did I send you that?
Yes.
Did I send you that thing about Shakespeare Code? Did I send it to you?
No.
The Shakespeare Code.
Yes,
did I not? And they end up in Oak Island.
Oh no, I haven't heard anything.
Oh, I think there's a bit of a delay with us. So there's a documentary out. I'll send you the link. And basically, it's a guy who's managed to, decipher the code out of Shakespeare plays, and with lots of clues, they end up at Oak Island. I mean, it's fascinating. It's a 2-part documentary. I'll try and find the link for you to watch it. But yeah, that's to do with the Templars, and they think a lot of the documents are buried there, and I can't remember. I mean, there was so much to it, and how they got there. Yeah, I mean, they talked about Francis Bacon. He wasn't, he was a straw man, basically.
Yeah.
I'll try and find the link now. Do you want to chat a little bit, and then I'll put the link up?
Sure.
While I'm looking.
If you've ever watched, in fact, the History Channel, I think, or the Discovery Channel, whoever it is, put out All of America Unearthed on YouTube, so you can watch most of that for free. A lot of stuff he talks about, I've spent a lot of time looking at myself, because I'm actually an archaeology nerd. I know everyone's like, but aren't you into? I'm an archaeology nerd. It is very obvious that the old world was very aware of the new world. Or let me rephrase this: those in power knew about the new world, and there's plenty of evidence that people were coming here for a long time. In fact, there's a stone the Smithsonian has. The Cherokee keep suing the Smithsonian, saying this is our stuff. They won't give it up, but it says for the honor of Judah, and it's written in Paleo Hebrew. And it's a Cherokee stone. It was found here in the Americas, and like that's ours. Who was it? I just forgot his name. It wasn't Sam Houston. It was Sam Houston. Anyway, one of the early fathers of Texas. He actually did a study, and he worked with the Cherokee, because again, Texas Cherokee, that's where they were, and he noticed that a lot of similarities between their beliefs and the Hebrew, and he speculated that the Cherokee were descendants of a lost tribe of Israel that had made it here to the Americas. So I think there's a lot. Oh, okay, I see that.
The Cherokees were light skinned too. They're not the same as like the Indians from the plains. A lot of the I agree with you. My thing is not Bigfoot. My thing is history, and I can't get enough of it. I'm like a sponge that can't get enough. And anything controversial in history is what I truly love. I believe that those caves in the Grand Canyon are true. Where I believe. Now, when you and I first met, Jason, I'm glad we got to talk again. We talked about the myths of from one continent to another, and you said how you believe that ocean travel has been something that people don't tend to think about, and I believe the same as you. I don't think we give our ancestors enough credit for getting in a boat and traveling, and so I agree that we may have not just Europe got here and did all the bad things that we get accused for, but I think people were here long before Europeans came here, besides what we consider our natives.
Yeah, the Egyptians, we know, there's evidence for the Egyptians to have gotten here. There's evidence that the Welsh got here. There's evidence that the Romans got here. There's evidence that certain African tribes, the Chinese, well, I was just getting to them because they came from the other side.
Right.
I'm actually of the opinion that people didn't migrate across the what we consider the indigenous peoples didn't come from the north. I think they came from the south up. I think that they came across by boat. And the reason for that is if you look at the percentage of Neanderthal DNA in Asiatic groups versus South America and North America, it matches up Asiatics with South American Indians. But by the time you hit North America, there's the percentage of Neanderthal DNA matches up with Europeans. And you have a lot of Paleo-European artwork and religious practices that line up with the Plains Indians. I think the Solutrean hypothesis has a lot of validity. Essentially, what you had was, even to say call them Europeans, I think is a false notion. But that we had a similar culture that made up Paleo-Europe, made it over here, that the Asiatic groups came across when they set up in South America and moved north, and that they essentially, we have everyone interbreeding up here, but that they went across the ocean and then went north, and that's how we get, the Plains Indians, your northern tribes.
And what about what were they called? You had this great the spear points and all that. They were of one particular style of people, and they disappeared. Now
you're talking about
by things that weren't as good, and before that weren't as good. It tells me there's been an awful lot of different migrations or different layers of people that have come and gone here. And probably not just here, but throughout the world. Europe, when they find these caves in Europe, you see that they had lions like Africa and buffalo and things like that in Europe too. And it's
rhinoceros. They got rhinoceros.
Fascinates me.
Well, and again, it goes back to look at the Ainu of Japan, right? The Ainu were the original inhabitants of Japan. They were light skinned. A lot of people thought they were Russian, or from essentially Caucasians from the Russians who migrated over there. When the Asiatics got there, they became the Japanese. They wiped them almost all except for one island. But they've done genetic studies, and they're like, this is a weird genetic group that's very, very unique, and but they share identical DNA with a tribe in North Africa that matches what you'd imagine someone from Africa looking like. They're black, and they have all the same features everywhere else. And they're like, well, hold on, how do we have a bunch of light-skinned guys over here and black and dark-skinned guys over here, but they're identical? Well, because that's how people are. People migrate. There's nothing, particularly when you talk about the oceans, that's never stopped anyone from getting anywhere. Just maybe not in the same, not everyone wants to make that trip, but a lot of people do. Humans were more mobile than we realize. And I think that there were groups that are the same group. They stayed isolated, but they got separated. One went here, one went there. I think this is way more of it's a much more complex tapestry than people want to give it credit for. And so instead of saying, well, hey, maybe we are moving everywhere, we're getting everywhere, and it's not this simple cut and dry thing that people have made it out to be. Maybe our ancestors were much smarter, much more adventurous, much more clever than we give them credit for. People don't want to have that conversation because it scares them. Because if we're not the ones on top of the food chain, then it begs other questions I think they don't want to have answered.
I agree.
Yeah, so do I. I'm not going to argue with you, Jason. Not this time of night. But I agree with that.
I wanted to ask you a question real quick. You were talking about we're friends, right? You and me?
Yeah.
So if you give me a drink, I don't have to worry about it, right?
I wouldn't say that.
You were talking about I've never poisoned someone before. I was just curious. I wanted to ask you that. I just want to make sure that we can have a drink someday.
No, absolutely. Again, just watch the bartender carefully is all I say.
Raptor Crazies have questions. Is it possible there's a tribe of native people that are very big and in Northern America and Canada?
Could
we
be.
Discovered. What about China, though, and Japan and Asia, all those places that they're also seen?
Russia.
Yeah. Well,
Russia.
So real quick.
Europe. I need to look into that for next year. I'm going to know more about European Bigfoot sightings.
Well, I go back to, as I've said, in Canada, you can tell me anything's in Canada. Canada has 30 million people living in it, and most of that's in like Ontario. The other ones then everyone else is in Toronto, right? There could be anything out there. We wouldn't know. But more to the point, when the Spanish originally got here in the 1600s, they talked about running across tribes where the males were averaging 7 to 8 feet. So this is not an unreasonable question to ask. In fact, the records show that they did run across people that tall, and that there were smaller tribes of giants. I mean, wherever you have to imagine, if the Europeans are coming over here, they're 5'3", 5'6" on average. Running across somebody who's 7 foot tall, that's pretty tall. They wrote about that. They recorded that. They were like, we don't know what's going on with this, because they were distinct from the other tribes. Sir Flanders Petrie, who is the father of modern Egyptology, he talked about finding and recording what he thought was a tribe of giants in Egypt that averaged between 7 and 8 foot tall. So I think is it possible that there's some unconnected or uncontacted group hanging out in Canada somewhere, or the Russian steppes, maybe South, maybe even South America. Yeah, but there are accounts.
Yeah, I mean, Brent makes a point. Tribal people come out and try and contact other people. Bigfoot hasn't so far. But what about that tribe in the Amazon where they were killing the people that were trying to make contact with them? But I don't know. Who knows?
People were being killed by those tribes clear up into the 70s. I just watched a documentary the other day of a group of missionaries that were murdered by tribes out there in the Amazon in the early 1970s.
Oh, there were people who were killed just a few years ago. This is not. Not every tribe necessarily wants to hang out with other people. And I go back to, if Bigfoot, the physical Bigfoot, like we've already described that, if that's an ape, they may not want to be contacted. Again, gorillas, they didn't want to hang out with humans originally. The billy ape, which is a larger chimpanzee, they were basically undiscovered for up until very, very recently, like the last 10 years. So it's very possible that this could be, again, maybe they're a tribe of humans, or they look different from us, but maybe they don't want anything to do with us. Maybe they're apes. They don't want anything to do with us. I mean, that's a valid question, and we need to ask it.
There's just so much going on, isn't there?
Yeah. These are good questions.
There's so much behavior going on that we think is their behavior. We don't know that, but it's just mixed messages all the time, isn't it? And knowing what is the right message that we are trying to decipher, even though we have very little contact with them. It just goes on and on. But look, we've come to our hour, and my feet are freezing because I've got my boiler's half broken. I've put the fire on next to me, but I can feel it's going down now. Like my legs are getting frozen. But it's been very interesting. I'm going to look into European Bigfoot reports for the next time and just see what is out there in Portugal, for example, or anywhere else in Europe. Yes, already, Phil. It goes fast, doesn't it, when we're having fun? Thank you, guys, for joining me tonight. It's been fun and fascinating. Thank you to everyone in the chat and everyone watching. I want to wish everyone a happy new year and hope that it's better than this year. If
what could be better than this right here?
This is great.
Oh, this is great, yeah. But in terms of, like you say, Jay, we didn't get to do the things we wanted to do. I mean, I missed out on a lot of sunsets and photography with these lockdowns where you weren't allowed to. You've been stopped by the police if you were going out of kind of like your zone. And, I don't want anyone to deprive anyone of seeing a sunset.
We weren't allowed to be in our forest, our giant forest here in the United States of America. We were not allowed in our forest for the first 4 or 5 months this year. So, it's been a bad year, man. I'm looking forward to the new one.
No one should be denied any of that because, that's the kind of thing that recharges my batteries, getting out in the woods and down on the beach and seeing the sunsets and just the simple things in life. That's all we need, really, isn't it? A little bit of the simple things and everything else is good. But guys, yeah, I'll see you all in the new year. Thanks again for all your support this year. I wouldn't be here really without any of you lot. And you guys again, Jay, Jason, thank you for everything that you've done.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here tonight. And I'm really happy to see you again, Jason.
No, glad to see you, man.
Leon asked us who was our favorite guest. I have to say Leon.
Oh, yeah, it was Leon, wasn't it?
Yeah, it had to be Leon.
Yeah, Leon, it was you.
Yeah, it's Leon.
All right, everyone, take care. And until the next time, bye-bye.